You are watching Macro TV. We are busy with study unit 2 and it is chapter 4 in Fourie and Burger. We are adding the foreign sector to our basic model of the economy. Now, in the previous video, we talked about the balance of payments. Now we need to consider 3 possible cases of balance of payments disequilibrium. We'll briefly talk about what happens when there's an increase in the repo rate, when there's an increase in government spending, or an increase in exports. Now, if there's an increase in the repo rate, the primary effect is that there is a decrease in the money supply. The LM curve moves to the left and interest rates increase and incomes decrease. Now, this is what you already know from chapter 2 and chapter 3. But now we have a foreign sector and there's a new dynamic that gets added. That increase in the interest rates attracts foreign capital inflow. So that means there's a positive effect on the financial account of the balance of payments. Also, the decrease in incomes because of that increase in the interest rate, which led to a decrease in investment, etc. That decrease in incomes means that imports decrease, and that in turn has a positive effect on the current account of the balance of payments. So there's a positive effect on the financial account and on the current account, and net, that means that the balance of payments is now in surplus. If we consider an increase in government spending, we know that initially this moves the IF curve to the right, which leads to an increase in interest rates and an increase in income at the new equilibrium. But this increase in interest rates also attracts foreign capital inflows, which leads to a surplus on the financial account. But then you need to keep in mind that incomes also increased, which means that imports will increase, and that will have a negative effect on the current account. So the net impact that an increase in government spending has on the balance of payments depends on which of the two effects are bigger, the increase in capital flows or the increase in imports. Finally, we can also look at the impact of an increase in exports. If exports increase, for example, due to an upswing in the US economy, we know that the IS curve moves to the right and interest rates increase, incomes increase. That gives you a new equilibrium. Now that we know how to add a foreign sector to the model, the increase in exports has a positive effect on the current account. The increase in interest rates attracts foreign funds, and that has a positive effect on the financial account. But at the same time, the increase in income means that imports increase and has a negative effect on the current account. So a positive effect on the current account from the increase in the exports, but this is balanced by an increase in imports later on when incomes have increased. And then we have a positive effect on the financial account. So likely the net effect on the balance of payments is positive and you have a surplus on the balance of payments. Now, what are the implications of a disequilibrium? Typically, it has an impact on foreign reserves. Now, we use foreign reserves when we make foreign payments. So that could be dollars or yen or euros, for example. If the balance of payments has a surplus, that means there's a net inflow of foreign funds and our reserves increase. But if the balance of payments is in deficit, there's a net outflow of foreign funds and our reserves decrease. It's important for a country to have a level of reserves available in order to pay for important imports, like oil. Now, the rule of thumb is that you need to have sufficient reserves to cover 3 months' worth of imports. If everything else stops and we're not able to earn any more foreign currency, we need to have a stash at the Reserve Bank that can pay for 3 months' imports. Now, the Reserve Bank can increase foreign reserves by attracting foreign capital by increasing the interest rate. But of course, this has an impact on the man in the street. All of us then pay more for our debt, and it also has an impact on investment, which has an impact on the economy. So the bank can't just increase the interest rate to attract more funds. They need to consider the wider implications of that as well. The balance of payments and what happens in the balance of payments has an impact on the money supply as well. So if there's a surplus, we said that means there's a net inflow of foreign funds, reserves increase. But at the same time, this means that the money supply increases with everything that goes along with that. Or if there's a deficit, you could have a net outflow of foreign funds, the reserves decrease, but that also means that the money supply decreases with all those consequences. Now, the Reserve Bank can sterilize a foreign currency inflow if they don't want a net inflow of foreign funds adding to the money supply. They can, at the same time, reduce the money supply by selling bonds in the domestic capital market. That's called sterilization. From the foreign side, there's an inflow of money, but then they take money out of circulation and reduce the money supply by operating in the secondary market. The balance of payments has an impact on the exchange rate and, of course, is influenced the other way around by the exchange rate as well. But before we get to that, we'll first have a separate video on the exchange rate, what drives it, what factors influence it, and exchange rate policies. And then we'll talk about the link with the balance of payments. So all of that in the next video. Stay tuned.